There is a quiet lesson that many of us only learn the hard way. Not through a single dramatic moment, but through a slow, almost invisible pattern where someone steps aside once, then again and again, until stepping aside becomes simply who they are. This is a story about that pattern and about the moment it finally breaks. On a wide farm surrounded by golden fields and old wooden fences lived a draft horse named Calder. Calder was everything a working horse was meant to be. Strong enough to pull a plow through heavy spring soil, patient enough to stand still through bitter winter nights, and steady enough that the farmer trusted him with the hardest loads every single season. But Calder was known for something else too. He was quiet. When the goats crowded the barn doorway and bumped against him, Calder stepped to the side. When the pigs nudged into his corner and pulled hay from his pile, he simply moved to a different spot. When the younger horses pressed him away from the water trough, he waited patiently until they were finished. Most animals on the farm believed this meant Calder was kind, and he was. But there is something important that kindness alone cannot teach you. Something that took Calder far too long to understand. Kindness without a boundary is not just kindness anymore. It becomes permission. Near the barn lived a rooster named Flint. Flint was loud, self-important, and deeply convinced that the farm existed for his benefit. Every morning he crowed from the fence posts as if he were announcing something the world desperately needed to hear. He chased chickens across the yard for no reason. He strutted through the barn like a commander reviewing his troops. One afternoon, Flint hopped up onto the edge of Calder's feed bucket and kicked grain across the dirt. He laughed, turned to look at Calder, and waited. Calder lowered his head and quietly ate what little remained. That single moment told Flint everything he needed to know. The next day, Flint returned. This time he kicked loose straw into Calder's water bucket. Calder ignored it. The day after that, Flint pecked at Calder's legs while he ate. Calder moved aside. And so it continued. A peck here, a shove there, a laugh each time nothing happened. Flint was not testing Calder out of cruelty. He was simply learning. And what he learned was this: the biggest animal on the farm had no edges. You could push against him from any direction, and he would simply absorb it, and move, and say nothing. Other animals were watching too. The pigs began pushing into Calder's stall. The goats climbed onto the hay he had gathered. Even a young donkey, barely half his size, shoved him aside at the water trough one morning without a second glance. Calder told himself it did not matter. He told himself it was easier this way. Less trouble, less conflict, a quieter life. But the farm was teaching him something different every single day. It was teaching him that he had no place anyone needed to respect. Then one evening, a new horse arrived. She was older, with dark fur, calm, steady eyes, and the kind of presence that made you feel she had already seen most of what the world had to offer. The farmer called her Myra. Myra settled into her stall quietly. She did not introduce herself with noise. She did not demand attention. She simply watched. On her very first evening, she saw Flint hop onto Calder's feeding pile, scatter the grain into the straw, and laugh. She saw Calder lower his head and gather what he could from the edges. Myra said nothing that night. She watched again the next morning. The same scene, the same result. Then she spoke. "Why do you allow that?" Calder looked up slowly. "It does not matter," he said. "It is only grain." Myra shook her head. "It is not the grain." Calder frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Rather than answer with words, Myra walked to the center of the barn where the animals gathered. She picked up a heavy wooden bucket in her teeth and dropped it loudly, directly in front of Flint. The sound startled him. He flapped backward. "Move it," Myra said calmly. Flint blinked. Then he pecked at the bucket. It did not move. He pushed harder. Still nothing. He walked around it, tried the other side, and finally stepped back, annoyed and slightly embarrassed. "I cannot move it," he snapped. "Of course not," said Myra. Then she turned, placed her shoulder lightly against the bucket, and rolled it slowly across the barn floor. Every animal in that barn went still. Myra looked back at Flint. "You did not kick this bucket because you knew it would not move." The barn was completely quiet. "And that is why he kicks your grain." Calder stood very still. The meaning settled across him slowly, the way cold water fills a hollow in the ground. Myra's voice remained calm, unhurried. "Disrespect does not grow because someone is cruel," she said. "It grows because nothing pushes back. The moment something holds its place, everything changes." That afternoon, Flint returned to Calder's stall. He hopped toward the grain bucket with the same easy grin he always wore. Old habit, comfortable routine. But this time, Calder did not step aside. He simply stood over the feed, still, quiet, present. Flint moved forward. His claw struck Calder's hoof. He stumbled backward. Calder lowered his head slightly, not in anger, not with any threat, just enough to say that this space was no longer empty. "I eat first," Calder said. His voice was soft. There was no rage in it, no drama. Flint hesitated, then he stepped away. No fight, no shouting, no broken thing between them. But every animal watching understood what had changed. In the days that followed, the pigs stopped stealing from Calder's corner. The goats left his hay alone. The donkey waited at the trough. Calder had not become cruel. He had not become loud. He had simply stopped teaching everyone around him that he had no limit. And that one quiet change was enough. Many of us have felt this pattern in our own lives. We step aside once because it seems small. We stay silent because it seems easier. We tell ourselves it does not matter because we want to believe that kindness and patience will eventually earn us something back. But silence can quietly invite more of what you wish would stop. When someone learns they can treat you without care, they usually continue, not always because they want to cause harm, but simply because nothing shows them otherwise. Respect does not appear on its own. It grows from the moment you stop allowing yourself to be treated as something that can simply be moved aside. You do not need to become cold. You do not need to become loud. You do not need to fight or wound or change who you are. You only need to hold your place, once, calmly, clearly. That one moment speaks more than years of patient silence ever could. Because the people around us, like the animals on that farm, they are always learning from what we allow. And the moment you stop stepping aside, they learn something new about who you are. If this story reminded you of something in your own life, take a moment and ask yourself where you have been moving away when you could simply stand. Not with anger, not with resentment, just standing. Share this with someone who might need that reminder today. And stay with us for more stories that hold the quiet truths most people walk past every day. Because sometimes the smallest boundary is the one that changes everything.